See if we can start by building the teaser class. Okay. So, beginning the teaser class, I just kind of wanted to go over exactly what this class structure is going to be. It's not about scripts or closing techniques. It's not necessarily about sales at all. It's about, I just tell you what. It's about why some people succeed in sales and in life, and most never truly start. When I talk about sales, understand, everyone sells something. It's not just some people. It's not just salespeople. Some sell products, some sell services, and some sell their time. Everyone is a salesperson. So if you're a salesperson, you're selling your time, that's fine. Or if you're a salesperson selling a product, that's totally fine too. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. So I basically, at 55, I went through a midlife crisis, and I had went out and I hadn't finished my degree. I'd actually gone to college for a number of years, but actually a number of colleges for a number of years, but never finished a degree. So I ended up at 55, and I went back and I got my BS. And when I got my bachelor's, I thought, boy, yeah, I'd like to get my master's. So I went back and I got my MBA. I stayed and got my MBA. And when I got my MBA, I said, well, you know, I've always been a believer, but I actually want to have something about theology. I wanted to actually go back and get my theology degree. Well, since I already had my MBA, I pursued a doctorate in theology, so I have a doctorate in theology. Now, what does that bring to the table? Well, with $7, that'll buy you a coffee at Starbucks. Honestly, all the titles, and I have a whole litany of titles on the end of my name. DD and BSEB and all this other stuff. I'm even a private pilot, so I can put in PPSEL on the end of my name. But the bottom line is that doesn't mean anything. What really helps is 25 years in the real estate business and 25 years in the printing business, because I have made more mistakes in business than a lot of you probably would want to know about. And so honestly, I've made a tremendous amount of mistakes, but the reason that I'm able to teach this class is because of those mistakes. Those mistakes will be lessons that you don't have to do. So I built 7 businesses from the ground up, literally from zero to nothing. I've managed companies with as many as 100 salespeople. One company, I actually took over the company when it was a fledgling. It had 7 salespeople, and they had a pretty good core, but they weren't really going anyplace. And we turned that 7-person salesperson staff into 49 in about 18 months. And I actually have worked for the #1 C21 franchise in the world, and I've worked for the #1 independent real estate company in Alaska. So I've traveled Alaska, Wyoming, Florida, sold real estate in a lot of different states. Alaska, honestly, I would be there now if it wasn't for the fact that my wife got sick, because to be perfectly honest with you, I love Alaska. Alaska is just an amazing place. So anyway, that is about me. And so if you're looking for a magic phrase to close more deals, this isn't the class you want. Okay, if you want to understand what actually creates momentum in sales and in life, you're in the right room. Because honestly, there are certain little aspects I've been able to figure out over my years of sales and sales management, because I've managed business as CFO of one company, and I have managed at many different levels. But the things that I've figured out is that there are certain aspects, and honestly, it's something in here that will make one person absolutely be determined to succeed, and another person just So, all these people that are actually, you guys that are actually listening to this right now, you understand that the reality is that 80% of you are going to listen to everything I say, and some of you are going to say, that's great, I really love it, I really want to do that, and then you're not going to do it. 20% of you will take it and apply it to your lives, and that will be a very good thing, and it will actually help you, jump and earn more, and maybe have better outcomes in various different aspects of your life. And 5% of you, this will change your life. This will absolutely be life-changing, that what you do, because that's just the ratios. I don't know. I understand why. It's human nature. I don't understand the logic to it, but that is reality. Is 80% of you probably just going to toss it away. So my challenge to you is, don't toss this information away. Use it. Apply it to some aspect of your life. Okay. So Hernando Cortez got to the New World, and he actually was in Cuba and had gotten there when he was about 19 years old, and he was a landowner, and he was a soldier, and just basically a whole lot of things to earn a living in Cuba. And he was the #2 guy in Cuba, actually, and he always wanted to have more. And so he decided that he was going to take an expedition to the mainland, to Mexico. And he got together the boats, and the gentleman that was his direct supervisor, that was, I think he was called Valdez, just absolutely despised him and didn't want him to go. And what Cortez did, once he got the nod that he could try to, he got the boats together and he left. And just boom, gone. And so Valdez was never ever able to come after him. So when he got there, he really didn't have the support of some of his officers and some of his staff. Most of the men loved him. He was a very charismatic individual, and most of the people just really loved him. But those officers that knew that Valdez didn't want him to be the leader of this expedition at the very end, they tried to poison the men against him. And what ended up happening is that Cortez just burned all the ships. He basically said, "We are here, we are going to succeed, or we're going to die." And that kind of mentality, you snap everybody into place, because even if you're an officer and your ship is burned, you don't want it to fail, because then it's your life. So anyway, he got to Veracruz. He actually ended up establishing the town of Veracruz in 1519. He established the town of Veracruz. So when he got to the New World, he had 500 men. He had cannons, he had muskets. All 500 of them were soldiers, and he had horses. And horses were really amazing because nobody had horses. And these Spanish came in with all their leaders riding on horses, and they were just awestruck by them. The Aztecs were awestruck by them. So he came in, and he ended up having a conference with the emperor of the Aztec nation. And during the conference, he took the emperor hostage, and literally his men surrounded the emperor and took him hostage and carted him off to another building. And during the whole thing, there was all kinds of shooting, and there was literally tens of thousands of these Aztec soldiers that were killed in this. And the emperor ended up dying, whether by the hand of the Aztecs or by the hand of the conquistadors. So anyway, he basically was defeated, and ended up losing a good third of his men, about 200 of his men. He tucked his tail and he got himself back to the coast. But did he quit? No. He absolutely regrouped and said, "We're going to go back there and we're going to kick this guy's butt." So they went back to the thing, and he rebuilt, and he ended up having very, very big success. And he sent home treasured galleons full of treasure to the king of Spain. So the king of Spain was actually now enamored of this Cortez, because who doesn't like a conqueror? So the vast treasure letters to King Charles, justifying every act as loyalty to the crown. I did this for you. I didn't do this for me. I did this for you. And so, but remember, winners always write the history books. So at age 43, he returned to Spain, not as a rebel, but as a celebrated conqueror. He was received by the king, ennobled, and made the Marquis de Valle de Oaxaca. Yeah, he'd ridden from a restless miner noble to a man who broke an empire, the Aztec Empire, and reshaped history. Understand that the capital city of the Aztecs at the time was the largest city in the world, larger than Paris, larger than London, larger than any other city in the world. Even the Chinese did not have one city that was as large as in the number of people as the Aztecs. And he absolutely conquered this whole country. So, was he the strongest guy? No. Was he the most powerful? No. Was he the most moral? Absolutely not. He was a horrible guy. So, but he understood decisive commitment changes outcomes. When he was had his group, his boats together, and Valdez says, no, you're not going. He just left. Decisive commitment changes outcomes. Once he crossed the point of no return, he made the world adjust to him. He didn't stay where he was. He actually just decided that he was going to go, and when he got to the thing and he was confronted with the unrest among his officers, what did he do? He burned the ships. Said, if you're going to stay with me, you're going to be loyal to me, or die, whichever you want. So when retreat is removed, focus becomes razor sharp. I have seen a number of people that I've trained as salespeople that I'll give you one instance. This young lady came to me, and she had a 4-year degree, and she was 23 years old, very attractive young lady, and very well versed, very well learned. And I hired her as a salesperson. I gave her all the tools in fact, I gave her more tools than I had my number one salesperson. I told my number one salesperson as an incentive, I said, she's going to outsell you in 3 months. And I just gave her everything. I mean, I gave her a stable of customers. I gave her everything. In 3 months, I fired her. Why? She'd done nothing. When I say nothing, she hadn't even visited the customers that we gave her. She had done absolutely nothing. She thought that all she had to do was show up to work and be pretty. And intelligent girl. I'm not saying she wasn't a bright girl. She just didn't think she had to work for a living. And when I fired her, she was shocked. And I said, well, your sales are zero. You were hired to sell. So, okay. So anyway, most people keep their ships docked just in case. Some keep side hustles. They either use sales as a side hustle, or they have a side hustle that they could turn into a full-time company, full-time business, but they don't really want to commit to that because this paycheck, this contract, this job that I've had for 10 years is just so secure and warm and fuzzy. Okay, you remember what I said in the opening, that everybody's a salesperson. You're either selling a product, you're selling a service, or you're selling your time. If you're selling your time, you are making other people's dreams come true. You're not necessarily making your dreams come true. You're making someone else's dreams come true. That's what 95% of the people out there do, is they make other people's dreams come true. They'll work for the county for 25 years and have a nice pension, but they could have been starting their own business, and even a small business. The Millionaire Next Door, that's a book that you should read, Millionaire Next Door. The Millionaire Next Door, they did an analysis of all the millionaires, and I'll summarize the whole book for you because it's a lengthy book. But these were Harvard and Stanford professors that actually wrote this book, and they did a very in-depth review of millionaires. The Millionaire Next Door talks about who is really a millionaire, who could be able to live for 3 years after losing their income and have no problem at all, keeping their same lifestyle. And the answer usually was a guy like a roofer. He's a roofing company that had owned the company for 15 to 20 years. He drove a 3 to 4 year old car, and it was always big. It was always a large car, and he didn't buy it brand new. He bought it used. That's the guy that was the millionaire. He had $300,000 or $400,000, $500,000 socked away, maybe more, maybe $1 million or so socked away. He owned all of his equipment free and clear. Every piece of equipment was owned free and clear. All the trucks, all the buildings, everything was owned free and clear. Those were the millionaires that would be able to survive no matter what. I mean, the economy falls, but no problem. I'm good. Everything happens, no problem. I'm good. So the point is that if you commit to something, and if you actually are able to do something like build a business, then you will have something that is lasting for you and possibly your children's time. So anyway, sales becomes optional, and optional things can never get done. So sales, a lot of times for people, becomes optional. I have, as a real estate salesperson, trainer, manager, I've hired, I want to say hundreds, probably not 1,000, but maybe 700 or 800 salespeople during my time as a sales manager and recruiter in sales. And the reality is that there's no certain style, there's no certain personality type. I've seen bookish people be tremendous success. I've seen jocks that you don't think are real smart have tremendous success. I've seen people that I thought were going to be extremely successful go down in flames. And it's something inside, it's something here that people have to have for themselves. And maybe it's a commitment. And that kind of leads me into the modern example I have of Cortez. I had this young guy that came to me in June of one year, and I was recruiting. I would have sales seminars for an hour on a Friday night, and I would have drinks and cokes and stuff like that, and they would come in and we would talk about real estate, and I would go over the whole spiel, PowerPoint presentation, yada yada. Anyway, this guy hired on with me, and he said, I've always wanted to do something like sales. And he said, I'm a coach at the local high school, and I'm not enamored with my job. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I said, why did you go into coaching? He said, I didn't want to go to coaching. He said, I was actually drafted by the Green Bay Packers, and I went to the mini camp they have in June for the draftees, and a guy blew my knee out. And he said it was so bad that I didn't walk for a year. I literally had non-operable damage. He was able to walk now, but there's no way he could play football. He had no strength in that knee. So he ended up losing his dream with the Green Bay Packers. He was actually drafted by the Green Bay Packers, and he was going to be an NFL player. You know, the NFL players, it's not for long, but most of the time they get at least a year or two. Well, he didn't even get that. He got a couple, 3 paychecks up front and then gone. Anyway, so he's a coach. He didn't want to be a coach. And he said in June, he said, I've got a wife and 2 kids at home. My wife doesn't work. And I want to learn how to be a realtor. And I said, I'll do everything in my power to train you. By God, I will pull out all the stops. And so I did. And we would meet once a week for an hour, hour and a half, and we would talk about what he was doing, how he was doing it, and I would give him ideas, and he would go out and he would do them. He did things like that off the wall, like he bought a booth in a flea market and was passing out business cards and brochures and stuff like that at the flea market. I thought, unusual, but okay, if it works. And he actually got a couple sales out of that. To give you an example of the kind of guy he was, from that flea market, he got a guy that wanted to buy a house in a specific subdivision. This only had 80 homes in it. It was a fly-in, fly-out subdivision, okay? So this guy wanted to have a home, one of the houses in that subdivision. And there were no houses for sale. Actually, I believe there was one house for sale, and they made an offer on it, and it was way out of the guy's league, and they couldn't buy it. So he went around and knocked on every single door in that subdivision and saying, do you want to sell your house? Do you want to sell your house? I have a cash buyer, Until he found a guy that was a cash seller that wanted to sell his house. And he put A with B and got the sale. And that was a nice sale because it was almost $1 million house. So, but by the end of the 3 months, so June, July, August, he had to go back to school as a coach in August. He came to me, now understand, wife at home, 2 kids, so there's 3 of them, 300 mouths to feed at home. And he came to me at the end of that 3-month training period and says, I'm quitting my job. I'm not signing the contract. And I said, you're what? You got a wife and kids at home. Don't you want to take it a little slower? Because I love commitment. I love it. But sometimes, sanity prevails. And this guy had 2 contracts under contract. And to be honest with you, I have seen so many contracts fall through. You don't know that you're closing on a real estate deal until you're walking away from the closing table. And even then, I've had one that actually unclosed after I walked away from the closing table. So you don't know if your sale is done until it's done. And he had 2 under contract and had not had any closings. Well, the bottom line is he said, that's what I'm doing. And he was a Cortez. He burned the bridges. And that guy made $70,000 the first year. I understand his contract was $55,000 with that safe, secure job. But he has become an excellent salesperson. Just top drawer. He has his own real estate company now. Why? Because he said, I will not be denied. I will not be denied. Burned the ships, said, I can't do anything but this. This is what I have to do. And so, it's really amazing what motivation does when you actually are committed to a specific task or specific challenge. So, anyway, at this point, I wanted to try to get you guys to have some input in various different things. I want you to write down right now, take 5 minutes or so, and write down on a sheet of paper what your ship is. Because all of you have those. All of you have those. I have a dream, but I can't really do it today because, or I'm not going to because, and so what is your ship? What do you need to burn in your life in order to get to that next level, in order to really go and be successful? So, and understand that this isn't about recklessness. I don't want you to think that because as I told him, he had a wife and 2 kids at home. I thought it was reckless for him to stop his job, his current job, and just go full time. I wanted him to go another 6 months of real estate with his current job and then quit, or even another year and then quit. Once he got himself really enamored and had 20 or 30 closings going on. But because of his mentality and his commitment, he didn't want to do that. I get that. So this isn't about recklessness. It's about clarity. I want you to look at the things in your life and say, okay, what is my ship that is causing me not to obtain my dreams? Go ahead and take that 5 minutes. All right, so it's been 5 minutes, and so most business failure and sales failure isn't skill-based, it's identity-based. People don't fail, they hesitate. They don't fail. A lot of times, they don't, it's not that they actually aren't doing stuff. I've had numbers of people. I can think of one young couple that I had, that both of them are very articulate and very good at sales. But the guy was a salesperson in a product like AT&T, and the woman was a nurse, and they wanted to become realtors and have that kind of a lifestyle so that they could actually have a family and do stuff, have more freedom, because obviously AT&T is 8 to 5, and a nurse was different shifts, sometimes midnight shifts, etc. So they were very good at what they did, and they became decent salespeople, but they never would commit to real estate. They actually, to this day, they are not committed to real estate. They keep their job and use real estate as a play thing. Would they become really good at it? Of course, they'd be killer if they were to commit to real estate only. I think they would probably do literally $1 million in income within just about 2 or 3 years, because they're that good. But they just don't see it. So it's identity based. They cannot identify with massive success. People don't fail, they hesitate. So in the next few weeks, what we're going to be talking about is PMA, positive mental attitude, critical. If you do not have a positive, I'm a believer that I get up in the morning and I'm calling people and I'm saying, hallelujah, praise the Lord, this is a great day to live. And that just drives my wife crazy, because she's not one of these morning people. It's like, pulls a pillow over her head. And but PMA is something that you really, really need to have. If you don't have a positive mental attitude, you can't be successful in most of the things in life. I mean, you certainly can't be successful in business, because business requires you to look at the silver lining of every dark cloud. You've got to. My father was one that he saw the dark cloud of every silver lining. He literally would come into work sometimes and he would just be throwing stuff and angry for no reason. Now, of course, any reason I knew of, but and I worked for him as in a family business for a short period of time. So the next week, week 5 would be discipline. So we're actually going to talk about discipline. Discipline is one of those things that if you do not have it, military people, especially if they're in the upper echelon and officers, they become very successful in business because of discipline. If you do not have discipline, you can't be successful. You've got to. I am a very undisciplined person as far as I have ADHD, and I can go here and there and look at the turkey, look at chicken. And the problem is that I have to force myself into that mold, and I have forced myself into that mold by lists and this and that. However, I have got several different things, and I've got messages that actually beat me in order to fit myself into that discipline category. So you have to have discipline, or else you won't be successful. Preparation. Week 6 will be on preparation. And I'm just giving you a brief summary of this thing because preparation is one of those things that a problem well stated is a problem half solved. That is so true. Problem well stated is a problem half solved. If you do not understand exactly what the problem is, drill down to what the problem really is, and there's usually 1 or 2 problems a day that you really have to conquer. Not more than that. Honestly, if you solve them 1 or 2 critical problems every single day in your business, you'll be successful. You will be. But those 1 or 2, you have to drill down to those because you get caught up with all of the little problems up here that you never drill down to those 1 or 2 critical problems that you ever need. And those they fester and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what you need to do is you need to actually drill down into what those problems actually are and cover that. So anyway, we're going to be covering that. So what we covered tonight is a week 1 of a longer process. Real changes don't happen overnight. It happens through repetition, structure, and accountability. Habits are made when you reach the point of no resistance. Understand habits. The way you do things oftentimes is the way that you are successful. So it takes 2 to 3 weeks for a habit to become effortful. Now, you're not thinking about it all the time. 4 to 8 weeks for it to be neutral. In other words, you don't have to think about it, you do it, but it might, if you quit doing it, it would go away. And after 60 to 90 days, whatever habit you do for 60 to 90 days, if you do it habitually every time, every single time, in 60 to 90 days, it becomes a habit and you will do it all the time. For example, saving money, spending only what you have, not spending more than you have. So it takes 2 months to make a habit automatic, but only 2 weeks to convince yourself it won't work and quit. So in those first 2 to 3 weeks, if you decide, it's not going to work, it won't work. And you are absolutely right. If you think you can, or think you can, you're right. You're right. You're right. If you think you can't, you're right. So, in summary, Cortez came from poverty and poor opportunities. My coach friend came from lost opportunities and desperation. So, there's a powerful meta lesson here. Scarcity breeds drive. Cortez had nothing. He grew up in a poor area of the country that had very poor resources, and many people came out of that country, many conquerors. Pizarro came out of that, Hernando Cortez came out of it, De Soto came out of that area, all of those areas. But that was a very poor area of the country, and the reason they came out of that area was because scarcity breeds drive. If you're poor, you want to have something better. So, and comfort breeds caution. Okay, if you're comfortable, you don't have to, you don't have to make an effort to go out and do anything, extra. You can just kind of drive. They say that most people will rise to it's called the Peter Principle. The Peter Principle because every person is endowed with just so much, and you can't have any more. So you will rise to the level of your own, ineffectiveness. You'll rise to the level of your own ineffectiveness. So if you are, in the military, it's particularly obvious because you'll have generals that have risen to the point where they are just, World War II, you can look at the generals that were replaced because they were horrible leaders, and then there are generals that were promoted from within and made generals because they were so effective. Because the point of this is that comfort breeds caution, and caution is not necessarily what you want in building a business. You've got to understand the surroundings and make decisions on what you do, okay? So Extremadura, that's the area that Cortez and De Soto actually came from, and Pizarro came from. Created men with nothing to lose. They had nothing to lose. They came from nothing, they were going to nothing. So an NFL draft disaster breeds determination. When my friend got drafted by the Green Bay Packers, he thought, life is great. I'm going to be able to be an NFL player. We're making millions of dollars, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, knee goes out. So they didn't cross oceans because they were fearless. They crossed them because staying was worse. So they absolutely wanted to get away from that. So anyway, I'm going to be teaching weekly sessions and discussions, real world applications, small groups, built for people who are serious. And then I just want to let you know, this course is not for everyone. If tonight hit something in you, I want you to invite you to continue. I think that you would probably be able to build on something I've said and be able to use some of the tools that I will give you in the future. I'm not trying to be a teaser, but of course that's what this is, you know. I do want you to continue if you could. And so just regardless of whether you join us or not, do me a favor. Burn one ship this week. Burn a ship. Absolutely unequivocally, burn a ship. If you burn a ship this week, I will feel like I have done something and not wasted my time for this class. Because I really want you to have the nerve to be able to be, to jump and to go out there. Because the vast majority of people live their life and at the end of their life look back and think, what did I accomplish? Vast majority of people. And the reality is they could do so much more if they just were to just dive in. Anyway, love you all. Thank you much. And I'll talk to you soon.